everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Annie, and today we'll be making royal icing, which is used to decorate cookies. In my last video, I shared with you the recipe that I use to make the perfect sugar cookie for decorating. If you haven't watched it already, I'll be sure to link it down below. So without further ado, let's get started. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. In order to make royal icing, we'll be using only 3 simple ingredients. We will be needing 16 ounces of powdered sugar, that is 453 grams, 1/3 cup of cold water, that's 79 milliliters, and 2.5 tablespoons of meringue powder, which is equivalent to 20 grams. So before we get started, you want to be sure that your bowl and your tools are completely grease-free. Because we're using meringue powder, any trace of grease will break down the icing and will cause problems for you in the drying process. So what I do is I put a little bit of distilled white vinegar on a napkin and just wipe down the paddle attachment, the bowl, and my spatula. So to get started, we're going to simply combine all of our ingredients and start beating on low for about 30 seconds. And then we're gonna crank it up to high. We just don't want all the powdered sugar to get all over us. All right. And we're gonna beat it for about 7 to 10 minutes on high speed. So I actually let it mix for like about 7 minutes. I just make sure that it is well incorporated. Everything looks smooth, that there's no lumps in there. And then I just go ahead and stop it. And we kind of want to, I'll show you a better close-up of it. So it's nice and fluffy. And there you have it. This is the royal icing to decorate. So now the tricky part is that royal icing has 3 different consistencies. This consistency right here is a hard drying royal icing. This is the kind of icing that you use for the glue in gingerbread houses. So it's really nice and thick. You see how thick that is? Doesn't even really move. Yeah, right, so I've transferred the royal icing into an airtight container. You want to keep it covered at all times and make sure it's well sealed. And you do not have to refrigerate this. It could keep on the countertop as long as it's covered correctly for up to a week. If you are working with it, you still want to make sure that you cover it with a damp cloth. That way it could prevent from crusting and drying out. I did want to go into a little bit further detail regarding the different consistencies of royal icing. And like I told you before, the one when you first make your royal icing, that is considered stiff consistency, hard consistency. You could also hear that as well. And that is the type of royal icing, if you could see that it's really stiff. It's a glue that you use for the gingerbread houses, and also you can make decorations in advance, like flowers, for example, and you can let those dry and they could stay for months. You could store them and use them whenever you need to, but that is the type of royal icing, the stiff consistency that you would use for that. The other 2 is medium consistency and flooding consistency. The medium you use, and I could show you that. Get a little bit right here. I don't want to use too much. And what you would do in order to get medium consistency, just add a little bit of water at a time. And it's always to err on the side of caution rather than adding a whole bunch at the one time. And just add a little bit at a time, because you could always add more, but you can't take it away. So you just add a little bit of water. This one. And this one, the medium consistency, what you can use that one for is for writing on the actual cookie. And that makes it really nice and thick as well. but not as thick as the glue. So it's easier to pipe. We're almost there. It's still a little thick. We're going to add a little bit more. And what you can do, if you make it too thin, you could always add just a little bit more to get a thicker consistency if you go a little too runny. But this is a good one right here. So you see this, it's still there, but it's still a little stiff, but not as stiff. But you see it's a little bit smoother and it's easier to pipe. And that is what you would use for writing on a cookie. That's right there. You see how that goes? It's not as stiff as this one. And then for the flooding, you can use, let me get another little glob. Don't want to use too much. You want the consistency of like honey, where it kind of runs. You don't want it too thin because then it'll fall over the side of the cookie, but you want it thin enough so it could actually come back together. I'll show you here in a minute. And like I said, if you go a little bit too far and make it a little too runny, just add a little bit more from your stiff consistency to get the right amount. A little more. When you're getting close, some people even use a little spray bottle just so they won't go over. That's also a good way to do it and not to overdo it with the teaspoons. We're almost there, just a little bit more. Not even a smidge. You see how that runs? That's a good consistency right there of flooding. So you want to make sure when you pour it in there and you make a line, you count like about 15 seconds, and if it disappears, that's a good flooding consistency. I don't know if y'all can see that. That's a good flooding consistency, but I'll show it to you this way, it's better. You see how it clearly runs, kind of like honey. So that is your flooding consistency. So you have the three different ones. You have the three different consistencies. Like I said, stiff consistency for decorating with flowers, and it will dry really hard. The medium for writing on your cookies. And then the flooding is the one that you put as the base of the cookie, and it goes on really smooth. So those are the three different types of consistencies with the royal icing.